Hello, and thank you for tuning into this video presentation. Today, I'm going to talk to you about COVID-19 pool testing in school, what it is, why we would do it, eligibility, and the method and procedure for going about collecting the sample, submitting a sample, and how you would get test results. So the basics, what is pool testing? Pool testing is when a small group of specimen samples are collected, a portion of which are combined or pooled to be tested as a whole. If one person within the pool of samples tests positive, the entire pool is flagged and subsequent testing is enacted to determine which individuals within that pool are positive. So why would we do this? It actually increases the efficiency of testing as a whole, rather than collecting individual specimens from each and every person and having each test run individually, which can take a significant amount of time, anywhere from 6 to 24 hours per sample. We're actually testing a batch, right? So if we have 24 people in a batch, we flag those 24. Then they're retested in smaller batches, which are called hotspot pairs, so 12 sets of 2. And then we can isolate a single pair of individuals who are, one of which, or potentially both, are likely to be positive. So we kind of narrow that window very quickly. There's a faster turnaround time for results. So they narrow from 24 to the hotspot pair within 24 hours. And then you will be contacted if your pair is flagged as positive to give consent for diagnostic testing, which takes anywhere from an additional 12 to 24 hours. What's great about pool testing is it can identify asymptomatic carriers of the virus. This is not something that the Abbott BNext Now rapid tests that a number of schools are doing are capable of. Rapid testing has only been approved by the FDA for testing individuals who are currently experiencing symptoms. So pool testing is a huge initiative to be able to identify potential individuals in the school setting that may be asymptomatic at this time. So this is just a really great visual to kind of highlight what I just discussed. So again, we're looking at pools of 24 individuals. It's a screening for COVID-19, 12 to 24 hours to get that result. If somebody, any one individual or more within that 24 set were to be flagged as positive, then we do the retest hotspot that you see in the center here, 12 pairs of 2, and they're rescreened again, 12 to 24 hours for results. And then a pair or multiple pairs, however many positives were within that initial pool, will be identified. At that point, you will be contacted to give consent for diagnostic PCR testing, which will determine who within the hotspot pair does have a positive test result. And as we see at the bottom here, hotspot samples can go directly to individual diagnostic testing using the same saliva samples. So the initial saliva sample that you submit will be able to be used for the pool of 24, the hotspot retest of 2, and then once again for the individual test. So just to clarify, when I talk about hotspot sampling, it is if the pool of 24 is positive, it is split into 12 pools of 2, and each pair of samples will be combined and retested. So a portion of that original sample combined for retest. You don't have to submit a new sample. Again, if your pair does test positive, the 2 individuals within the pair will be asked to provide consent for a PCR diagnostic test to be run to determine individual results. Both individuals within that pair will be required to quarantine until the results of the PCR tests are received. So we're looking at that 12 to 24-hour window for individual results. So just a couple FAQs about pool testing, who is eligible. Any lab staff member who is currently working on campus in the applicable district. Any lab student who is currently attending in person in the applicable district. In both cases, the individual has to have no symptoms and no recent exposure. Pool testing is not designed to replace diagnostic testing for individuals who should be seeking PCR testing at onset of symptoms or 4 to 5 days after their last exposure per state regulations. This is specifically designed to identify any asymptomatic cases that might currently be in school. You cannot participate, unfortunately, if you have received a positive test result within the last 90 days. So how often can you be tested? This is determined at a district level. Each individual school district might have different parameters or frequencies for testing. We'll be sure to provide that schedule to you when we receive it and share any information that is district specific with you at that time. Are you required to be tested? No, participation is voluntary. We do strongly encourage all eligible staff and students to participate as an added measure to help keep our community healthy and safe, but it is certainly not a requirement. So pool testing, just going over the method really quickly. Good news, you do not have to undergo a nasal swab. This is saliva-based testing. It is self-collection, or in the cases of students that might not be able to do this on their own, parent-guardian collection in the home. There are easy step-by-step instructions that I'll go over in just a few minutes. Again, it is a saliva sample, no nasal swab is needed, and a new testing kit will be provided to you for each sample that is collected and submitted for testing. So we're looking at a 4-step process for pool testing. You are going to pick up your testing kit from the school nurse at the applicable site, register your testing kit and sign a consent for testing online, collect the saliva sample as directed, and drop off the sample to the school nurse, which we will submit to the lab for testing. So step 1, registration. The requirements for testing are as follows, these 4 steps here, and they do have to be completed for each individual test that you decide to participate in. So say we have a district that is doing 4 weeks worth of testing. If you choose to participate in all 4 weeks, you will need to do a registration for each individual test for the duration of those weeks. So you are going to receive a link to a Google registration form that will ask you to enter your contact information. Staff, please use your lab email address. This will help the applicable district nurse leader and I determine or designate which staff members are associated with their email. You're going to enter the unique barcode located on your saliva sample collection tube and review and electronically sign an informed consent form. Just giving you information about pool testing, all of the stuff we're going to talk about today, and then your consent for them to actually run the tests when the lab receives it. So pool testing procedure. You are going to receive a kit. In the kit is a saliva collection tube, a straw, alcohol wipe, and tube bag. You cannot eat, drink, smoke, chew gum, or brush your teeth for at least 30 minutes prior to providing your sample, nor can you use mouthwash for at least 2 hours prior to providing your sample. So you're going to receive your test kit a day in advance. You cannot collect your saliva sample until the morning of test submission. So if you receive your test kit on a Tuesday, for example, and it is due by 9 a.m. on Wednesday, you can only collect the saliva sample that Wednesday morning. Saliva does have a limited shelf life, and samples that are collected too early may yield inconclusive results. So this is the procedure, and I'm actually going to go ahead and show you with the supplies that we have so that you have a good idea of exactly what you're going to need to do. So the saliva straw does not actually come in a pouch. It is this small plastic straw that you see here. It has a tapered base with an anchor, and your tube is very small here. If you have any trouble reading small font up close, you may need assistance in reading the barcode. It is very small. It is 2 letters followed by a series of numbers, again, that you put into your registration form. And each barcode is unique to the test tube that you have here. So you're going to unscrew the cap. You're going to take the tapered anchor end and fix it in to the tube like this. It's very secure. You're going to pool saliva in your mouth, and using your tongue or cheeks and the straw, you're going to push saliva into the tube. You don't want to blow the saliva into the tube because you don't want to create any air bubbles in the saliva itself. And you do need to fill the sample collection tube at least halfway. If you're unsure, add more. It's always better to have a larger sample than not enough. In the event that you don't have enough saliva in the tube, you may get inconclusive results. So you do want to make sure that you get enough in here. So once you do that, you're going to take the straw off, screw the cap back on. You're going to take the alcohol wipe that's provided to disinfect the outside of the tube before you put it into the collection bag, and you're going to bring the tube in the bag to the nurse at the applicable program site. So just some helpful tips for saliva collection. It can be difficult to generate the amount of saliva that is needed in order to properly run these tests. So just a couple quick tips. You can massage your cheeks, make chewing motions, smell sour foods such as lemons. You can think about your favorite type of food. All of these methods are ways to try to increase your saliva glands production of saliva to help you get more of that into the tube. It is very small. You should only need, again, about half of this tube. But if you are struggling, if you have dry mouth, these are just some tips to help you generate more saliva to be able to run the test. Again, you don't want to blow air into the straw or into the tube. You want to use the straw to guide your saliva, but not blow the saliva into the tube because you want to reduce the amount of air bubbles. If you do find that regardless of your efforts, you're getting air bubbles into the tube, you can just lightly tap the tube, which will help to break up those air bubbles, and it will give you a more accurate reading of how much saliva is in the tube. The tube does have grid lines on the side so that you can get an idea of the measurement of how much is actually in your specimen collection. You want to make sure that you have a tight seal on the collection tube itself, that the cap is securely on there because you don't want to accidentally, inadvertently lose any amount of saliva that might be present in this tube. And again, use the alcohol wipe to disinfect the tube. Once you're finished, this helps to avoid any cross-contamination from handling the tube itself. And so just some frequently asked questions about pool test results. You will know your pool test results within 24 to 48 hours of sample submission. So when I say that, I'm including the original 24 pool down to hotspot and then all the way to knowing individual results if it comes to that point. Because the pool test down to hotspot takes approximately 24 hours in total. And then if you do have to receive an individual diagnostic test through this laboratory, then within 12 to 24 hours, you'll have an idea of, or you'll know for certain whether or not you are in a positive pair or if you have tested positive. So if your pool is positive, do you need to submit a new sample? No, the lab uses the existing sample for each individual test from 24 to 2 to the final PCR test. And you should have diagnostic results within a few hours. Although they do say 12 to 24 hour window to receive your individual PCR results. It's more likely that you're going to have that within just a couple of hours, roughly 4 to 6. If my pool is positive, can I seek PCR testing on my own? So yes, you don't have to use this specific laboratory to get the PCR tests done. It's certainly easier. They already have your sample. You don't have to make an appointment or have the nasal swab done. They just rerun your saliva sample through diagnostic testing, and they'll be able to reach out to you to provide you with the results. If you would prefer to use an independent provider, you're more than welcome to do that. You'll just need to quarantine until you have the results, and you'll need to provide the lab nursing department with a copy of your results when you receive them. So that is a brief summary of pool testing in schools, kind of the mechanisms that we're going to use to go about doing this, but you will receive individual district-specific information, all of the information to register your kit, where to get it, where to drop it off, all of that good stuff will be in an email provided to you. If you do have any questions about any of the details that we went over today, or any questions in general about pool testing or how we'll go about doing this, please feel free to reach out to me at any point. I'm always available to answer any questions, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you.